Hello, and welcome to Deep Thoughts, Shallow Plots. My name is Erika, and I really like horror movies.
My name is Katy, and I really like overanalyzing things. What will we be overanalyzing today, Erika?
Today, we are going to overanalyze 2015's The Witch, written and directed by Robert Eggers.
Or as it is often called, the VVitch.
Oh, I call it The VVitch, yeah.
The VVVoom.
Its original title is The VVitch,
Yes.
A New England Folktale.
Yes, because in New England, in that time period of the early 1600s, they had not officially decided on the letter W.
Right.
They would just use two V's or two U's.
Right.
Thus the double U.
Yeah, W, yeah. Or in Spanish, you call the letter W, or W.
W?
Yeah.
Yep. So VVitch.
The VVitch. You know what? I learned something the other day, or maybe you were there too. It was at trivia. The newest letter to be added to the English alphabet.
Oh, I don't actually think I did know that.
Oh, it's J. The letter J. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, it is kind of a weird one.
And I believe most of our letter J's that function differently from the letter G, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in the word pajama or jungle, come from
Arabic?
Not Arabic.
Oh.
Punjabi.
Oh, okay, I was close. That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But hey, we're not talking about
language.
We're not living in Arab world today.
No, we're
Arab
living
world?
in.
That sounds weird. We're living in 17th century New England.
Yeah,
a very different place. Yeah.
So, do you want to give us a quick and cute little rundown of our plot?
Yes, I will be as quick and cute as I am capable of being. I would say, if I were to describe this movie or give a brief synopsis of the plot, I would say that it is about a family, a Puritan family in 1630s New England, who are, it's kind of a like, you can't fire me, I quit kind of thing. Where they leave their Puritan, they call it a plantation.
Yeah, it is a plantation.
Their Puritan plantation, they banish themselves to, start a farm out in the wilderness on the edge of a very foreboding forest, I would say.
Mm-hmm. The music lets us know that.
Oh, the music lets us know. Oh, the music does a lot of heavy lifting in this film, I think.
It really does. It really does.
It's beautiful and it's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
It really makes you unsettled.
Choral women.
Yeah, those minor seconds, those minor chords, like really make you think like, oh no, something bad is happening or is going to happen very soon.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens. Bad stuff starts happening incredibly quickly. This family has 5 children,
which is so many,
and 4 of them have made it past the age of 5.
Yeah.
So
They're doing great.
That's really good luck for them.
They should be really, really proud of themselves.
They should be proud of themselves, and they should definitely think that God is favoring them for that. Absolutely. And then, their seemingly strong Puritan family devolves, and they turn on each other. There is definitely witchcraft and black magic. I don't know so much about possession.
Yeah.
But there is witchcraft and black magic.
Unless you count a goat being possessed by Satan.
Oh. No, I don't count that.
Okay.
I can see how somebody would. But me, no. As I was saying, yes, their family is torn apart by witchcraft and black magic, but also in much more real ways, it's torn apart by paranoia and religious fundamentalism and how absolutely hard it must have been to live the life that they had to live.
Yes. Yeah.
And witchcraft and black magic, whatever.
Yeah,
it's fine.
those two.
So should we just take a minute to talk about how absolutely gorgeous this movie is?
It's so beautiful. I think we really benefit from the fact that Robert Eggers, our writer-director, has a lot of experience in production design.
Yes.
So he knows how to make a physical atmosphere. He knows how to get all of those historical details just so gorgeously laid out.
Yes, and I did a little bit of research on Reddit, between rewatching this movie and before our discussion. A lot of people on Reddit, what they had to say was any of them with previous historical knowledge of the time period really appreciated how incredibly accurate.
Yeah.
The costuming, the lighting.
Yeah, no, it's clear he really did all of his research.
Yeah.
And it says at the end of the film, all of the dialogue even is based on like journals and
Yeah.
other things like that were written in this time period. 17th century New England.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm here for historical accuracy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a dose of witches.
With some witches, yeah. I think I was reading, like a quick little art interview with Robert Eggers,
Mhm.
and he mentioned that overwhelmingly they used any like natural lighting, right? So any daytime shots, they're just using the daylight they naturally have. Minimal use of artificial lighting, a lot of candles, you might
Mhm.
recall.
Yeah.
And the natural lighting, I just feel, is like so incredibly effective. It makes it feel so like real. Like
Mhm.
this is actually happening. This is not a stylized movie version of a witch,
Yeah.
or a Puritan family. This
Right.
is like, it almost feels like if found footage were a thing in the 1630s.
Yeah. It keeps it grounded, even when witches are literally flying.
Right.
See that? That was a joke.
I see what you did
No.
there. Yes. Yeah, grounded. And I just think that the natural lighting's incredibly effective, and the candles in those indoor scenes, especially like after it's dark, because it's 1630, they don't have electricity.
Yeah, it's gonna be goddamn dark.
They have candles and they have a fireplace.
And they're doing their best.
And-
And their dad chopped a lot of wood, so that fireplace is gonna keep going.
And hey, you can tell how much wood he chopped because like there's at least one, maybe two scenes where he doesn't have a shirt on, and like he's got a six pack. He's cut. He's cut.
He's like shredded, man.
Yes, yeah. And I was like, yeah, probably.
Get it, dude.
Working from
All right, Father William.
from morning until night every single day.
Yep.
Well, except probably on Sundays. They probably would rest on Sundays.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the candles make those indoor scenes like really dark and depressing, which is effective because it's a dark and depressing story.
And it kind of actually then encourages the characters to go outside, even though that's really where the danger is, in the woods with the witch.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when at the end Thomasin does go out into the woods and join the witches,
yeah.
with that firelight,
That's
it's actually
true.
a lot more open and inviting and warm in a way that a lot of those inside shots aren't.
Yeah, and she's naked during that. So
Yeah.
like I can at night, I bet it was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's actually one of the things in terms of the cinematography that I really loved is how the movie kind of folds in on itself in the sense that our first shot of Thomasin
Yes.
is her with her hair covered,
Yes.
looking really worried, with her eyes sort of drawn upward, and the lighting is very cool toned.
Uh-huh.
And then our last shot is the one we were just talking about, where her hair is unbraided around her shoulders.
She is butt naked.
She's laughing wildly. Her
Yeah.
eyes are towards the ground, and all of the light is that warm lighting from the fire. So they're like
Ooh.
exact opposites.
Yeah.
And then even after that, we have her first scene where we hear her speak, and it's prayers to God, and talking about how she's a sinner and she's begging for mercy.
Right.
And the last dialogue we have of her is with Black Phillip, where she makes that deal where she conjures him to speak.
Yes.
Only he actually answers her, unlike God.
Right.
So we have this inversion that happens.
The god of this film is an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really excited to get into that with you because we've known each other for far too long.
Mhm.
And we've talked about a lot of things, but I don't really think religion is one of the things we talk about a lot.
Certainly not Christian religion.
No.
Maybe other religions, but I was not raised in any religion.
And I wasn't either. I mean, more so than you.
I feel like you had a little baby's first Bible in your room that I've seen.
1,000%. Yes, I have family members who are devout Christians.
Yeah, I have family members that are devout atheists.
Right, that's great, My parents, though, I call them secular Christians. So, like, we celebrated the holidays, Christmas, Easter, but, like,
Yeah.
we never went to church.
Yeah.
I had family members who went to church, and sometimes I would go with them. And honestly, 90% of the time, church made me incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always been, because I'm such an outsider to basically all religions, because I didn't grow up with any of them.
Course, yeah.
I've always had a certain fascination with them all, that I have like this kind of enjoyment with
Right.
them because I don't have any of the trauma associated with
Of
any
course.
religion. So
Well-
I get a kick out of them.
And, I would also probably consider myself a more religious person than you
Yeah.
in general. And
I like to say spiritual.
spiritual because you're a lesbian in your 30s from the Pacific Northwest.
I've got a tarot deck. Don't worry about it.
but I just wanted to say one more thing about the cinematography before we really get into it.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of darkness, and there's actually something happening in the darkness. So like we have a very poorly lit scene at the end when Thomason is speaking to Black Phillip, and we see Black Phillip take human form, but barely. But he's there.
Yeah.
And like we see him walk around, and we see him like a
His
gesture
shoes
to grab her
kind of,
hand,
and
and I mean that's just one example, you
right,
know.
yeah, because we also have a lot of scenes with the witch where we like can kind of see
Barely
what the witch is
see
doing.
the witch. Yeah.
but-
Oh, when she's smashing up Sam. Yeah, we can
Yeah.
like barely tell
and
what's
also
going
when
on.
she's like suckling on the goat
Oh yeah.
before she scares the twins.
Yes, we can barely. Yeah, the darkness. It's interesting because you know what sometimes people say like, oh, I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of what might be in the dark. And in this movie, like, yeah, there's stuff in the dark.
There's stuff in the dark. Watch out.
The literal devil is in the dark. And
Be
this
careful.
movie is dark a lot.
Yeah.
So, and I also really love the imagery of the forest. I love that as they are, you know, banished, self-banished, whatever you want to call it, like when they leave and start their own homestead, their own farm, you see them like literally on their cart drawn by a horse going towards this huge like wall of trees of forest. And there's a lot of like wide angle shots of the forest itself, and it's just the forest, and we see the forest, and they're playing the music with the minor chords and the female choral vocalist really creeping you out, and it's just forest.
Yeah.
And yet every time I watch this movie, which I've seen probably 3 or 4 times now, when those shots come up, I'll even pause it maybe and like look in the forest and see if I can see a witch.
Because they make it feel like you should be terrified with just the way it lingers there, the time it takes on it,
There is something
and the music.
objectively terrifying about the woods.
Yeah.
Just their existence and the fact that like there's this wall of trees. Although they go into it a lot.
Well, more than they're supposed to.
Right.
They talk a lot about how the kids aren't supposed to go into the forest.
Right, yeah.
Dad gets into a bit of trouble taking Caleb over there.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up having to watch this movie in 2 parts.
Yeah.
I watched the first half and then had to do other shit with my life.
I
And
honestly-
watched the second half.
I honestly cannot do that.
Yeah.
I'm all for you being able to do that, but I can't.
Yeah.
I gotta
No.
watch a movie straight through.
So I paused it at basically the halfway part, right on a beautiful close-up shot of Black Phillip's face. Like and that's his second appearance. His first appearance is like 20 minutes into the movie.
18 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, where the kids are talking about how he's the king over all and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
He's
that
the king
song
of
is,
everything.
That song
They're
is
his
creepy.
servants. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's great. And then we have the next appearance is this close-up of his face, which is such a great establishment of him as a character in this movie because it's the same sort of close-up centered pictures of all of our other characters like Thomason and Catherine, where we have those like, this is a character.
Yeah.
But it's like a goat. So at first
But
you're
it's
kind of
also
like,
a goat.
what's the deal with this goat?
Yeah.
Why are we looking at this goat?
I did find myself wondering, where did they get this goat? Because they have livestock.
Yeah.
They have a dog. They have a horse. They have several goats. And it's like, where did you... Oh, and chickens. They have eggs, I remember seeing. Like, where did you get this livestock? Did they get it in town? Did they get
Probably
it before or
partially.
after they moved?
I know that goats were pretty popular animals in Puritan times
Sure.
because they were good for
Oh, yeah, you could get milk, cheese.
yeah, they're good for like transporting goods, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's possible that they got them.
They graze and forage. Yeah.
But I mean, there are also wild goats, aren't there?
Sure, yeah.
So
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, maybe that's the problem. Maybe they picked up a wild goat. Ooh.
Yeah, I was wondering that. Where did they get it? And of course, you know, like, I feel like we should touch on it, but we don't, like, I don't think we need to go super deep in it. Like, how problematic the name Black Phillip is. Like, yeah, he's a black goat,
Yeah.
but, like, you know.
Just, ooh, is that we have to say about that?
From our, you know, our 21st century perspective rather than a 17th century perspective. Yeah.
But I mean, it was such a common naming convention
Of course.
to do like a color.
Yeah.
I mean, even people often would have colors like, I mean, Blackbeard or
Yeah.
like different kings had the name Red.
Yeah.
Relate, you know.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think it was anything racial, but with our lens, it can be
Yeah.
a little like. It's like how there's an X-Men character named Black Tom
Ooh.
who's just like some white Irish guy.
Oh, no! Oh, no!
Yeah, just a fun little X-Men fact for
Okay.
you. They make fun of him in one of the Deadpool movies. For being a white guy named Black Tom.
Named Black Tom. Does he name himself Black Tom?
I think
Or is he named Black Tom?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, maybe we can talk about Deadpool one day.
Yeah. Should we talk just a little bit about Thomasin?
Yes.
Just because she's our main character.
I love her.
I love her. She's how do you feel about her as a final girl?
I think she's a great final girl. I think that she's and her character development is really interesting because we're introduced to her and she is literally praying.
Mm-hmm.
She's praying out loud, and I don't know if Puritans would have said their prayers out loud, but obviously like it helps us know what exactly she is, when you what exactly she is confessing. It's a movie. Also, it's cut with images of her mom feeding the baby, feeding Sam, and Caleb's, around doing stuff. But like we don't see those two things happening in a shot together. So it feels like, were we meant to think that Thomasin is like praying and confessing like in front of her family, or is this a more private moment?
Oh, I took it to be a more private moment, but there also are moments where some of the kids seem to sort of confess. Like, we have that moment in the woods between Caleb and his father where Caleb is talking about how he's a sinner and Samuel's probably destined for hell, and so is he, and all of that stuff. Like, I mean, I'm just going to say this dad did a bit of a number on these kids.
I mean,
they all think that they are, like, horrible sinners destined for hell.
Well, and can I just say, Katie, don't lay that all at Dad's feet, because Mom did a number too. And I find Thomasin, I think, is probably my favorite character.
Yeah, I think she's the one we're supposed to empathize.
Obviously, yeah. But I think William, the dad, who I will probably just call Dad.
I know. All my notes is just like father and
Dad,
Papa.
Mom, yeah. Because I think probably because you're right, because we're meant to empathize the most with Thomasin and see ourselves in Thomasin. So like then William would be Dad because it's Thomasin's dad, right? I think William, the dad, is probably the most interesting and complicated character.
He is complicated. I went back and forth so many times between like, oh, he's such a sweet, loving dad. He loves his kid so much. He's standing up for her. To like, oh, he's calling her a bitch and slapping her in the face.
He calls her a creature.
Yeah.
I think that he is. I thought a lot about William's relationship with Thomasin. Like, what is this? Because, and we'll talk about some fan theories later. About the relationship between William and Thomasin.
I know what you're talking about.
I will just state now that I do not think it's sexual.
I don't either.
No, I don't. I think he's just at his core a dad who loves his kids.
I think he's just such a dad.
And he is in a shit situation.
I know. And honestly, my best evidence for him being such a dad is the amount of time that he spends chopping wood. Like, I don't know. That's what my dad does.
Is that what your dad does?
My dad loves to chop some wood. I don't know. We got a lot of wood at our house. Like, at my mom's house, where he doesn't even live anymore, he just brings us wood. So, Papa's.
It's a nice little, a gift,
Just here's some wood.
Act of service, yes. Yeah. Oh, my dad's love language is absolutely an act of service. Yeah. It's not chopping wood, but yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't have a wood fireplace, so.
No, and we haven't for a long time.
But
I also think that Catherine, did you notice that your name is the name of the mom and dad? Okay.
Yes, I did. I saw all the spelling for Catherine was how I spell it too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
In
the actress, her name's Kate Dickie.
Yeah. She's wonderful.
She is wonderful. She does an amazing job as Catherine, and she's very unlikable.
Yeah.
And
she's good at playing an unlikable character.
Yeah, I love that. And then the actor, his name is Ralph Ineson, I'm not quite sure how you say it. He's William. So I was just like, oh, Catherine William. Oh, okay.
You just dox me on the pod, Erika. Good luck Googling Catherine William.
even Catherine Williams, Oregon.
Yes, honestly.
It's not helpful. I'm sorry, though. I just need to say this name. The actor who plays Caleb, his name is Harvey Scrimshaw. And, that's just one heck of a name.
Yeah.
I love that.
I really hope that kid is going places. I did not look into anything else he's done since this.
No, neither
I feel
have I.
A lot of credit was given to Anya Taylor-Joy. I think this was, her first big role.
It's my understanding it was, her debut role. Yeah.
Yeah, and she did wonderfully in it, and she's done wonderfully in everything
she's great.
since.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, that kid. He acts his little heart out.
Oh
I
yeah,
like him.
especially that scene where he dies. Like,
Yeah.
oh my, like he is acting his ass off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can just see so much. He's one of those guys where you can really see every thought on his face when he's acting. Like, it's really good.
You're the actor of us, so I'm going to
Again.
defer to your judgment.
Yeah.
Caleb is interesting too because Caleb, this character is the age of my students.
Yeah.
So I kind of see the adolescent of it all, like that scene very early in, I think right before he goes to go try and find the traps with his dad to see if they've caught anything. You kind of catch him like looking at his sister's cleavage.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, he's an adolescent boy. He's interested in boobs.
Yeah, I mean,
and
there's
the only boobs he has access to are his mom's and his older sisters.
You cannot blame the boy.
I don't blame him at all. Not even a little. And so I just kind of, I see it. Like, I see the adolescence, like, turning into an adult, starting to be interested in sex when, even not that long ago, he wasn't before.
And also starting to be interested in sort of, like, stepping up in the family.
Yeah.
And more responsibility.
And being a man.
And keeping the family together by making sure they have food and stuff.
And trying to make his mom happy by saying he went to go get apples.
Yeah. And
I want to talk about the symbolism of the apple.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, later though. And then we have Mercy and Jonas, the twins, who are the worst.
Nobody likes Mercy and Jonas.
I hate Mercy and Jonas
I'm
so
not sure any
much.
of the people in the movie like Mercy and Jonas, like not even their parents.
Yeah. And honestly, that's kind of the cast.
Yeah.
However, I do have one credit for the witch. Someone by the name of Bathsheba Garnett or Garnett.
That is a witch's name.
That is a witch's name if I've ever
Good
heard one.
casting.
And that's the cast.
Yeah,
those are our
there's
characters.
a few other characters in the beginning, but we don't really talk to them.
No, they don't really like mean much or develop really. Like those are our characters.
Yeah.
So again, we're in the scene of 1630s New England.
Yeah.
They're Puritan settlers.
So they're getting corrupted, and I mean, I think the great thing about Thomason and just sort of the plight of women, I guess.
Oh, good Lord.
Is
yeah.
How she's this young woman, freshly of like childbearing age. We get the idea, and she ends up.
What does Catherine say? Her womanhood is upon her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's menstruating.
And right away, she's getting blamed for, like, everything that goes wrong. And, like, maybe she should have kept a better eye on a baby. But, like, who expects a baby to get stolen while you're playing peekaboo?
But, well, that's the thing, because we see what happens.
Yeah.
And the wolf story, we know is bullshit.
Yeah.
Right?
Though even if it wasn't, I don't know how much I would blame Thomason. And then everything else that happens as, like, her family starts to fall apart around her. She's kind of passive in it all. She doesn't cause any of it, but she gets all of the blame.
She gets blamed. Yeah, so, like, the silver cup.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really interesting symbol, a silver cup. I think it's Yonic, first of all.
Okay.
Cups.
Yeah, no, cups are often Yonic. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Well, and also the symbolism of a cup. In general, what you think about cups and tarot.
Yeah.
You have a tarot deck.
Yeah.
Say,
Yeah,
like,
it's the feminine
I don't
card.
also have a tarot
Yeah,
deck.
I know. Anyway, back to Thomason. I just think it's really interesting how
and anyway, the cup.
She doesn't actually have any control or power in any of this, even though her whole family thinks that she has so much control and power.
Right.
Even up until the end when she makes this deal with the devil, it's like, what were her other options at that point?
Oh, she has no other
Her
options.
whole family is dead.
Yeah.
Her farm is not producing food. We know that.
Yeah.
She could go back to the village and say what?
Yeah. She's all by herself. Her family's dead.
Like even if she doesn't sign her name in the book, they're going to assume she signed her name
she's
in a
probably a witch. Yeah.
So like, pour one out for Thomason. She did her best.
She did. And yeah, so that's why, that's actually one of the reasons why I think William is a really interesting and complicated character, because he is like, in some ways, like this textbook Calvinist, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then a couple of times he lies for the greater good. To protect the feelings of his wife, right? Or to keep himself out of trouble when he lies, or it's kind of a lie of omission, where like he doesn't tell his wife that he sold the silver cup, which we already know is the truth. And he doesn't tell his wife that he sold the silver cup. He kind of lets Thomason take the blame.
For a while.
And Thomason actually does call him out on that at the end.
I know.
He's like, you let like me get chided over the cup, you know.
When she calls him a hypocrite and all
Yeah.
that. It's
And I
great
was like,
too.
well, you're not wrong, Thomason.
Yeah.
Because human beings are complicated.
Yeah.
You know, so he protects himself, but he does kind of come to Thomason's defense, where he's like, she didn't take your cup.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't offer an alternative,
Yeah.
but he like tries to kind of help her out. But, like, she didn't take her cup, Catherine.
And it's the
Or
same
Kate.
thing.
They call him
Yeah.
Kate. Yeah.
It's the same thing when she's first getting accused of witchcraft, when that first starts coming out from the mom and from the twins.
Yeah.
His first reaction is, no, Thomason's not a witch. You're being ridiculous. You're being hysterical.
Yeah.
Thomason's not a witch. Like, for a long time, he believes her.
Yeah.
And even when he stops believing her, he kind of doesn't know what to believe and locks her up and the twins up.
Oh yeah, when he just kind of locks all of his remaining children
Yes.
up in the I'm gonna call it the goat pen, you know. I was just like, this is a man who is tired of his children's bullshit right
Yes.
now. And
He's like, some of you might be a witch. Maybe you're all just annoying. I don't know. You're
I'm-
going in timeout.
I'm sick of you. You're gonna stay in here tonight. Like, I need some time to think about it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a way that William is like such a dad.
Yeah.
And not that like his decisions of literally hammering boards into the door
Yes.
of the pen so his kids cannot leave.
Mm.
I don't love that.
No.
I found a lot of connections between abuse and love overwhelmingly, not just from William,
Yeah.
but from their religion itself.
Oh, yeah.
Do we want to talk about Calvinism now, or you wanted to talk about some folk tales? Where do you want to go?
This is a rich text.
It
We have
is.
a lot of places
It
we
i-
want to go.
So first of all, can I just say it is literally 90 minutes long,
Mhm.
which is really short.
And ideally.
Ideal length, 90 minutes. And a lot of people, I noticed, I was like kind of looking through some internet stuff, and a lot of people were like, oh, this movie's so slow. And can I tell you how not slow this film is? Literally in less than 10 minutes of the film, that witch is mashing up a baby and bathing in his blood.
Yeah.
Like, that is fast paced. We meet Black Phillip before the half-hour mark.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredibly fast-paced film. It's a
just
rich
that it's
text.
one that
text.
it lingers.
It lingers, yeah.
It's really good at lingering.
And it makes you feel it doesn't make me feel scared. It makes me feel unsettled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very uneasy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where should we go next?
Let's do a quick literary corner.
Let's.
Because Katie has to have her literary corner.
We definitely need some music for this.
I know.
Literary corner. That's just Troy and Abed in the morning.
We can't steal that.
No, we can't.
We'll get mad on it. We'll get mad on it.
Literary corner. That's my go-to for now.
Okay.
Okay.
Because this movie does have a subtitle,
It does, yeah.
which is A New England Folktale.
Yep.
And also, Eggers has talked about how he wanted this to be like a nightmare for Puritans, and how it was inspired by a lot of folk tales and fairy tales and written accounts of witchcraft from the time.
Yeah, I actually I have that written in my notes. It says, the witch is literally in all caps, the worst nightmare imaginable for Puritan colonialists
Yeah.
in the 1630s. Absolutely. Yeah.
So then I just sort of got to thinking about if we took this movie as a folktale rather than a literal story about a witch, what other more grounded story could it be an allegory for?
Mm-hmm.
And so the line that really got me was when Papa, our father William,
Dad.
says,
Yeah.
we will conquer this wilderness. It will not consume
It
us.
will not consume us. Yes.
Which is great. And also just made me think that this is like a starvation allegory and a surviving wilderness allegory.
Right, man versus nature.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna conquer the
I'm
wilderness.
sorry.
It's not gonna consume us.
Human versus nature.
Yes.
But
Yes.
very much in this case, man.
Yeah. Because I mean, we get explicitly that their winter harvest is rotted.
Right.
They say that the baby probably died from getting eaten by a wolf if it hasn't starved already.
Hasn't starved already. Yeah.
Their traps aren't catching anything. Their goats stop producing milk.
And
like-
produce blood instead.
And,
Ooh,
like,
spooky.
Ooh, spooky. And if we like take out the actual witch element of it,
Yeah.
like that baby probably was gonna die in these. I mean, it had limited shelter. I keep calling it an it. Little
It's
baby
Sam.
Samu,
Sam.
little baby Samu, little limited shelter and food. And there's a way in which a witch kind of almost makes for a kinder explanation for the parents, where they can have somebody to blame
Yes.
for what happens to the kid who isn't. Perhaps your husband who got you banished from the village.
Right. That's what I thought. I wondered, first of all, a couple of things. One quote that Dad says is, at family dinner with, very poorly lit by candle. However, probably for the period, still too many lit candles.
Probably.
But, whatever, like, it's a movie. He says, like, tomorrow we will have a fast day, but for our sins. And I was like, yeah, for your sins, and also the fact that you're literally running out of food.
Yeah, like, what are you gonna eat?
So it sounds like,
You're sharing, like, a piece of bread right now.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. No, and it's so clear throughout the movie that they are obsessed with food. It's on their mind.
Of course.
Like, when Thomason is sort of teasing Mercy, she talks about how she's going to boil and bake her since we're a lack of food, she says.
We're a lack of food, yeah.
And when Caleb is dying, he starts yelling a lot about the pain in his bowels and his stomach and says that that's where the witch is, like, pinching at him. When the mother, Catherine, dreams of her dead children, what she wants to do is feed her baby, something that she can't do anymore, and in a starvation situation probably she would not be able to do, and she would be feeling horrible about it. And, like, of course, Black Phillip's first offering to Thomason is the
butter.
taste of butter. Like, these
butter.
people are obsessed. Like, this is a story. If you take out the witch, these people probably are just going to starve to death and die of, like, exposure.
Right. And that's, so I know that one of the theories we'll talk about in a minute is the 7 deadly sins theory, and which I think we already kind of agreed we're not 100% on board with.
I don't like it.
But there is something there, because I do think that William's sin is pride.
Yeah.
He gets them kicked out again. Is it you can't fire me, I quit, when I thought I misremembered from the last time I had seen The Witch that I remember Kate giving birth to Sam while in the wilderness, and I was like, really, you're gonna put your pregnant wife through it? But no, apparently they already had their baby. It was like, but again, you are going to put your infant son and nursing wife through almost certain starvation.
I mean, it sounds like they started off shortly before winter. Bad idea. Like, that was when people got banished in that time period, that was known to be a death sentence.
Right.
I mean, not everybody died. They had technically a chance, but, like, no.
Not much of one.
You're gonna starve. Like, the people who did survive, normally it's because they made deals with, like, native people.
Right, yeah. And they this movie very conveniently leaves out the indigenous element. They make
their glimpses.
There's a glimpse. I only really remember one when Caleb has been witched. By the way, love using witch as a verb.
Yes.
By the way, he's witched, What does William say when Caleb comes back? He's like, naked as sin and witched.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh.
Nice.
Sounds
we
like
all wish we could be.
A fun Saturday night. Well, that sounds like. Kate makes a mention of something of, like, Indian magic, you know, and I was like, that's kind of the only glimpse we get into the fact that, like, there are also indigenous people, probably.
I mean, we see 2 of them when they're leaving town.
That's true. Yeah, so we know that trading is happening, probably.
And we also know that he traded that silver cup. He names 2 people, and I have a memory that one of them, he had some name for him, like Indian Tom or something.
Or Indian Joe or something.
Something that I was like, ooh. But yeah. So
1630, it's 1630, yeah.
But yeah, not very. But specifically with food and folktales, I really do want to talk about, because it's so good, when Caleb spits up the rotten apple.
Oh my god, I wrote down when I saw that happen, I was like, that apple is a huge fuck you.
Yeah.
From who? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, is it from the witch? Because, like, I am of the belief that there in this movie is a witch.
Yeah, me too.
So is it from the witch? Is it from Satan?
Yeah.
Is it from God?
Right, because he lied about the apples.
Right. Yeah, well, because, so, I'm gonna, please tell me about the apples.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, my main thought of it is that it's such a good combination, or like a blurring of folktale and religion and mythology and all of that stuff, because we have, like, the basic understanding, if we don't want to believe in a witch, could just be that this kid ate some, like, kind of rotten fermented apple and got super sick.
Yeah.
And kind of hallucinated and then died.
Yeah.
Which is, like, a very easy, straightforward thing.
Sure.
And then we have what sort of folktales could be made out of that, which is a witch with a poisoned apple, which is something that we're all familiar with because of Snow White.
Right, Snow White. Yeah.
But it's also something that witches have historically been accused of in, like, the Middle Ages in England.
Oh, poisoning apples?
Yeah, that came up a few times in trials.
Also, I just feel like, I bet you're probably going to go there with it, but I just feel like we have to mention the the symbolism of an apple in the story of Adam and Eve.
That's exactly the last point.
Yes.
And
I
it's
mean,
obviously, the forbidden fruit.
And we kind of also understand that depending on your telling of the story of Adam and Eve, sometimes it's not an apple.
Yeah.
But like from the European Christian perspective, it probably would have been an apple. Yeah.
And it's in that clear view we have of it where there is a bite taken out of it.
There is a bite taken out of it, yeah.
Which is so good.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting because it does kind of smack of magic because Caleb is speaking, right? He obviously, there's like nothing in his mouth, his airway's not obstructed, he's speaking, and then he stops and coughs up an apple. So like that to me smacks of witchcraft.
Yeah.
A pretty big apple that would probably be very painful to cough up.
But you can also see how if that was a kid who just had a bad apple and then threw it up, the sort of witchcraft that could be, the sort of folktales that would come out of that, especially because of the religious connotation.
And also Caleb has been gone at this point for, we're made to believe, a couple of days.
Damn, is that true? Wow.
Yeah. He's gone for a couple of days. So like, yeah, where did he go? Right? How has he been surviving? Especially when he comes back naked.
Yeah.
In the pouring rain, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a rotted apple with like a bite taken out of it. Yeah.
So off of that, do we want to start talking about some like historical context and like some religion stuff?
Absolutely. I've been dying to talk about Calvinism.
Yeah. Do you want to start with that?
I would love to.
Okay, let's talk about Calvinism.
So, I just want to give us make sure that we're like on the same page about what Calvinism is. I think you and I are, but you know, anyone listening, just in case, you know.
Yeah.
So in case we don't know, Calvinism was a sect of Protestantism developed by, you guessed it, John Calvin, in the 16th century. So it would probably be quite a hot topic at the point that this movie is supposed to be taking place. And really the big thing about Calvinism that really sets it apart from other sects of Protestantism is the emphasis on the doctrine of predestination.
Yeah.
Meaning that God extends grace and grants salvation only to the chosen. Right? And that there is nothing an individual person can do during their mortal life to alter their eternal fate. And who are the chosen? Wow, that's a great question. We can't know.
We can't know.
Calvinists are also Bible literists. Literalists, excuse me. Literalists. They take the stories in the Bible literally. And something I thought that was actually kind of cool about Calvinism is that in the church, you know, Christ is the leader of the community, right? Like Christ is the thing. But all of the followers are equal under Christ, but equal to each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's a nice thought. Yeah. That's like, okay, I can get behind 10% of Calvinism.
Right. I mean, it is. I mean, that's part of why there were some kind of like nice, almost not quite egalitarian, but something like that aspects to early Puritan culture,
right?
Because they were into like education for like all the children,
and becoming literate so they could read the Bible, but also becoming literate.
Yeah, they were like super literate compared to other people at the time,
right? Oh, compared to Catholics? Are you kidding me?
You're gonna be Catholics? And yeah, I got really interested in Calvinism. Did you look at all into why William maybe would have been banished from the village, the plantation?
No, I just thought that he was just pissing off the wrong people. He calls the judge, or the people, to the judge, he calls the people of the plantation false Christians.
Yeah. So I was sort of interested in, because I'm like, when we are with him, all of his beliefs feel very Calvinist.
Very much.
He talks about how he doesn't know if
I have the direct quote. Do you want to hear it?
Okay.
He says, "'Tis God alone, not man, what knows who is the son of Abraham and who is not, who is good and who is evil."
Yeah, exactly.
Smacks of Calvinism.
Yeah, and he has tons of moments like that where he talks about it.
And keep going. Yeah.
And they're also really big on original sin. And so he has all those things about how like we are sinful, you know, we're basically God's enemy, but he might show us mercy. Like it's all pretty run-of-the-mill Calvinist thought. But I was looking into like famous dissenters during Puritan settlement times.
Oh, okay.
And like one of the big famous ones was this guy named Roger Williams, who, like our William, was born in England but left with his wife and children for the New World because he was escaping religious persecution, just like a lot of Puritans did.
Right. Yeah.
And in New England, he got into trouble for preaching like this idea that everybody should have their own sort of like relationship with their religion and like be as, you know, which wasn't too crazy. But he also was big on treating the indigenous people fairly,
Oh,
which was like
that's a no-no.
which was kind of wild. And
Yeah.
he was big on the separation of church and state.
Oh, okay. Yeah, also
So
a no-no.
like he specifically got into trouble for having like these pamphlets and talking a lot about how they need to completely and fully separate their church from the Church of England.
Right.
And also ignore all of England's like edicts about everything because
they're irrelevant.
Yeah. And we need to separate our church and our state anyway.
Yeah.
And so when William is arguing at his trial,
yes,
he specifically is like, why went we out into this wilderness to find? Was it not for the pure and faithful dispensation of the Gospels and the kingdom of God? I cannot be judged by false contended Christians under an unseparated church, an English King's Church. It's like the same beliefs that got Roger Williams in trouble.
Oh, I see.
So I think he might have been an inspiration. So yeah, so our guy is the family in this movie. They are Calvinists.
Yes.
They are, our traditional Puritans, but they're also just a little bit radical in their own little way. I think that's
and isn't that so funny? It's just like, yeah, there should be a separation of church and state, and they're like, get the hell out,
get off my
lawn, my plantation.
Yeah,
absolutely. And also, so the Calvinism and the way that religion is portrayed in this movie, I find, is with a lot of love and abuse, as well. So what I said is after Sam is taken and they've kind of given up searching and they're like, yeah, he's probably dead. First of all, Kate is in bed praying, right? Which, yeah, absolutely. And when it's really interesting, we get to kind of see this husband and wife have a conversation. And like the way I feel is like, I think these two people actually like each other. Yeah. Which I don't think would have been par for the course in the time, right? I was like, I think Kate and William really like and love each other. And Kate, they really only live in like one room.
Yeah.
Right? So they've got the parents' bed and then upstairs are where the kids sleep. So it's like pretty easy to know what's going on in the house, right? To overhear conversations.
Yes, which becomes an issue.
Which becomes a huge issue, yeah. And Kate literally thinks that her infant son is burning in hell.
Well, he wasn't baptized.
I know. I understand. So think of these Puritan characters, right, in 1630s New England, Calvinists. The things that they have to understand to be true.
Yeah.
And what those implications mean is insane, because like, yes, Kate would have been like born and raised and probably genuinely believes that unbaptized people just go straight to hell until it happens to her infant son.
Yeah.
And then she has to deal with the fact that she thinks her kid that she bore for 9 months, gave birth to, like is taken care of and has successfully gotten 4 other kids past the age of 5, has died and is burning in hell for eternity. I wrote down, yikes.
Yeah.
Is that a loving God?
I mean, and then there's also the other implication of the blame she puts on her husband, because if they had stayed in the village and stayed in the church, that baby would have been baptized.
Yes.
And so like, what do you do with all of those feelings?
So, and they are not in a society where they are allowed to feel feelings.
Yeah.
I wrote down, but seriously, the trauma. The trauma this family has had to endure. First of all, Thomason and Caleb, the 2 older children, remember England.
She remembers the glass windows. It's so sweet.
And Fowler laying in the sun.
Yeah. What a nice memory she has. Like, how young must they have been when they were taken away from there?
Yeah.
And brought to a village in the New World. And then kicked out of that village in the New World and sent into the world. That's so much upheaval at such a young age.
You're absolutely right, but I think and I don't think that you forgot it, but you might have skipped over the trip from England to New England. Like a month-long ship trip in which some people probably would have died.
Yeah.
Isn't that where the pea porridge
What?
That like nursery rhyme?
Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold?
Peas porridge in the pot 9 days old. Isn't that like...
I have no idea.
Oh, I always heard that was like a song or a lyric that came from like, you know, ships leaving from England to the quote-unquote New World. Because, yeah, there would be pea porridge and it would be 9 days old and like that's what you had to eat. And once it was gone, they'd make more and like that was all you had, right? Yeah. So, again, with the food insecurity, right? Yeah. So think about how traumatic that experience of leaving England, taking the trip to the New World, starting in a plantation, getting kicked out, and then two of their, these parents, this family, 2 of their 5 kids die in pretty short order. They're in an incredibly harsh environment. They're starving. And they are constantly reminded that they are likely doomed to eternal damnation, regardless of what they do. And on top of that, they are not allowed to emote in any way. Their job is to work and pray, and work and pray. And it's like, holy crap! This is an incredibly traumatic.
Yeah, without
life.
A witch.
Yeah,
like it doesn't matter if there's a witch there.
Right.
This was going to be rough no matter what.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk a little bit about Black Phillip.
Yes.
And just the idea of goats being held spawn.
A symbol for Satan. Absolutely.
As the famous band Cake once said, "Sheep go to heaven, goats go to hell."
Yeah.
So a lot of animals historically have been associated with witches and like witches familiars, and witches are accused of shape shifting, which we probably see with the bunny, which we can talk about more.
Oh, the rabbit. Yeah.
Yeah. And like how in Salem during the witch trials, there were 2 dogs that were killed because people thought that they were witches who had shapeshifted into dogs. Those poor dogs.
Those poor dogs, yeah.
But goats themselves aren't super commonly associated with witches.
Okay.
Like the Puritan times,
sure.
You know, they crop up occasionally. But I feel like by now, a black goat, just like instinctually, has such a Satan-y connotation to me.
You have a bath mat.
I do have a bath mat.
Baphomet bath mat.
I do.
Is it?
It's Baphomet.
Is it a bath mat because it's Baphomet?
Yeah, it's a Baphomet bath mat. It's a joke.
That is... Yeah. That's a tongue twister. Okay. Yeah.
And of course, Baphomet is actually usually more of a symbol of, like, balance, but he gets associated a lot with, like, witches and Satan, like, on the tarot card. The devil.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also just sort of, like, later, like... about 100 years later after this Puritan era, we would have had, like, there's a famous Goya painting called The Witch's Sabbath that has a black goat. A couple decades after that, we have a Prado painting also called Witch's Sabbath, parentheses, The Great He-Goat. So, like, there are a lot of different theories for this connection between the devil and black goats.
And a goat, yeah.
Such as Baphomet, such as the Greek god Pan.
Yeah. Sure.
Such as just the general idea that in the Middle Ages, goats were often associated with, like, uncontrolled lust.
Hedonism, yeah. Especially for Pan, yeah.
And then probably, importantly, there's a verse in the Bible, I don't know which one, I'm not biblical, which talks about God and his judgment separating the devout from everyone else as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. I would say, though, using a goat is probably the least historically accurate part of this movie. Everything else, I would say, is more historically accurate.
Oh, it's very, yeah.
Like, everything they do, like, this movie is really good at using actual historical evidence of, like, how hysteria around witches happened.
Yeah.
How those accusations came to be. Witches turning into rabbits was actually really common.
Oh,
rabbits came up a lot as familiars for witches and things that witches turned into.
Yeah, thank you for telling me that because, you know, we see the image of a rabbit or a hare, you know, and I'm not familiar with rabbits or hares as witch familiars. You know, maybe it's because, you know, I grew up reading Harry Potter. I'm like cats, owls, crows and ravens, toads maybe.
Yeah.
But bunnies or rabbits or hares, you know.
A lot of actually just small, particularly mammals, but small creatures.
Right, because
were associated.
Because they would need to suckle from the witch, and so the smaller animal would probably more easily be fed.
That is actually that is another thing that was common with witches as like anti-mothers. Where they would be suckling animals with the blood from their breasts, which is where we get that scene of Catherine suckling a crow, or rather
a raven.
A raven.
It's a raven, yeah.
But yeah, it's that rabbit that lures Caleb and also poor Fowler to their deaths.
And then we see that rabbit again in the goat pen, right?
Yeah.
Is it, you know, associating itself with Black Phillip?
Yeah.
Maybe, you know.
It might be the witch and Satan.
Just making sure they're on the same page. Team meeting, you know.
Team meeting.
Yeah.
And then another big one that they have in this movie is it was a common theory that witches could fly
Yes.
because they used an ointment, possibly on themselves or possibly rubbed on their brooms, that was made of the burned fat of children.
Oh.
Plus also probably some like hallucinatory plants. So like
yes.
whether or not you were actually flying, you'd feel like you were flying.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was often thought that they would use. So that's why Samuel is stolen by the witch, and immediately we see her
smashing
making him
up
into
that
a
baby.
pulp
Yeah.
and rubbing it on her and on her broom, and
Yeah.
then she starts to levitate.
Yeah.
And that's also kind of answers what probably happens to the twins. We don't see what happens to them.
I was wondering what happened to the twins. Should we talk about the twins right now?
Sure, yeah.
So what does happen to the twins? Because when they get locked with Thomason inside the goat pen, and they hear the witch overhead and like the footsteps,
such a good creepy part.
Very creepy. And then they find the witch, taking blood from the goat, right? And she, of course, she's a old crone, older, not sexy at all, and she turns around and cackles at them, and then like that's the last we see of them. But however, if you ask me, and we can talk about this, Jonas and Mercy are 100% in league with the devil.
See, I don't know.
Okay.
Only because of the point that we don't see them again after that.
We see them never again.
We know that this witch steals children, unbaptized children. We know from history that often the burned fat of children was used for flight. That last shot we have is a bunch of witches covered in some sort of blood with a bunch of fire, and they're all flying.
And they get to fly.
Needed something to make that happen. I think maybe
Mercy and Jonas,
maybe.
I just
but also they're little dicks. So.
They are assholes. Hate Mercy and Jonas.
Like we just hate them.
But that's the thing, because there is that back and forth of because Mercy literally says, "I be the witch of the wood," before Thomason does her thing, and I think that is just sibling bullshit.
I do too.
Yeah.
That whole time.
And she, Thomason's like, "I'm working my ass off cleaning Dad's clothes by the river, and she says playing idle." Yeah. And so she's like, "Okay, well, two can play that game. I'm the witch of the wood, and I have a more developed brain, so I can make a more convincing story than you, Mercy." And then they get mad, or they accuse Thomason of being a witch, and then Thomason lays it out there. She's just like, "No, they're talking to that fucking goat.
It's that goddamn goat.
It's them." And William believes her. She's just like, "Did you make a pact with that beast? Like, is he talking to you? Like, because that's a normal thing that like is within the realm of their reality." Yeah, like your kid's talking to a goat, whatever. Because they are talking to that goat. They are whispering and like leaning in, and they are singing songs about him. So like, are they like being tempted? Especially since children are, especially in this time, would be considered, closer to sin because they're closer to their original sin, right?
And they just have weaker vessels.
They're weaker vessels.
Just as women do.
It's true. I got a lot to say about that in a minute. Where are they? So I was wondering, were they disposed of? Or did they just like go be with Satan?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's purposely left ambiguous.
I think it's purposefully left ambiguous. I really like that idea that they get got by a witch. I like that idea.
Because otherwise, what was the witch doing there?
Other than feeding off of a goat. Yeah.
And all those goats end up dead.
However, I would not. Yeah, the goats end up dead, and Black Phillip's gone, right?
Which seems, I don't know. It could be symbolizing the kids being dead. Because there are two
goats. White goats. Yeah. Although, certainly, Mercy and Jonas are baptized.
Maybe?
Because they were,
Probably.
How old are they supposed to be? Like, I think they're like supposed to be 7 or 8.
Yeah.
I don't know how old kids are.
Yeah. Though I also saw
they would have been baptized.
Conflicting things about whether or not the kid has to be baptized or unbaptized.
Right. I'm sure unbaptized is like a little cherry on top, but not 100% required. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just like with our last film, Cabin in the Woods, it's all about that youth, baby.
Absolutely. Youth. Yeah.
That's really what makes the sacrifice.
Yeah. I found a fantastic article written by Emma Shawchat, is how I'm choosing to say this person's name, for a website called heyalma.com.
I don't know.
I've never heard of it before, but I found this absolutely fantastic article of the history of anti-Semitism in witch panics.
Yes.
So, and I learned a little bit, and maybe, you know, again, you're more well versed in
I did a lot of
early modern and
I did a lot
and
of medieval studies,
Yeah.
but
So you might already know
but it's
this.
been a little while.
Yeah. I also just feel like this is so apt to talk about right now, like with the rise of anti-Semitism, you know? So many reasons why I want to talk about this. So apparently I learned this, that those quintessential witch tropes, right? Pointed black hats.
Yep.
Aligned with Satan, right? The witch's Sabbath. Even cats, actually, as a familiar. Any sort of the tropes that we associate with witches, but are more broadly just tropes of the, you know, the quote unquote capital O other, outside of European Christian society, are all anti-Semitic tropes, leading back to as early as the 12th century in Europe. I see. I'll read a little section here. That familiar pointed black witch hat, right, has an interesting relationship to Jewish history around 1215. In some places in Europe, Jews were required to wear a distinguishing cone-shaped hat. It was literally called a Judenhut.
Yeah.
Jew hat. Yeah. Which, you know, makes Jews visible, right? We can tell, like, who the Jewish people are, and they're more easy to target for anti-Semitism. And Jews were associated with the threat of Satan so thoroughly that in 1431, what is now Hungary, literally passed a law that required Jewish civilians to wear their Judenhut. And, you know, all of these cultural images are derived from just long traditions of, again, demonizing the societal other, right?
Yep.
And obviously, you know, we haven't really talked about this too much, but, like, obviously misogyny is a huge player in this movie, and a huge player in, you know, Puritan values.
And witch trials in general.
And witch trials in
general. I mean,
general.
there is another theory for some of these witch tropes that we're used to.
Yeah.
That they come from alewives, the first beer brewers who
Yes,
were women, and them gaining this sort of, like, economic freedom that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
You know, that they had those big cauldrons that they, you know, were always
with
stirring,
their pointy
and
hats.
sometimes they had their pointy hats.
Yeah.
So, like, there's that misogyny.
Right.
That fear about women having their own independence.
And being able to make their own living.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we know, like, we've read The Crucible.
Yes.
You know, so we know that, like, some men were tried and killed in the Salem witch trials along with women. However, it's still overwhelmingly women.
Yeah.
And the 300 years, the peak 300 years of, like, the witch craze in Europe, the majority of the people accused were women, around 75 to 85%. So, like, yeah, there's dudes in there, but, like, this is this is about women, right?
But what I found interesting, from my research at least, a lot of the accusations were also by women against women.
Facts, yes.
That it was a lot of women being used to keep other women in their place, which often happens in misogyny.
Absolutely.
Right now we see it a lot more kind of along racial lines, where white women are often used to keep women of color in their place.
I think about the you know, we just had the election. I think about, like, all those female candidates I saw on the ticket, and through the news, talking about, you know, limiting access to abortion, right? And I was like, this is women keeping other women down, man.
Exactly.
This is the opposite of what we need.
A lot of that was in the witch trials.
Absolutely. I also found this other little quote, according to some history scholars, Laura Apps and Andrew Gow. Again, that's just how I'm gonna say their names. I don't know. That even prior to the witch craze in Europe, the word witch was pretty much just a catch-all term for, you know, any generally non-conforming other, right? From European Christian societies, just kind of a catch-all term for any variety of heretic you could imagine. So that would have been groovy chicks, right?
Yeah.
Brewers, women who had some sort of knowledge of medicine, maybe, you know,
Yeah.
the women that would have been accused of witchcraft, and Jews
Yeah.
and Jewish people. Also, we talk
And also,
Mhm.
actually, on top of that, slaves. Once we get into New England, like Tituba
Yeah,
in the
Tituba.
Salem witch trials,
Yeah.
who was accused
Any
for...
other, yeah. Also, the word Sabbath, right? We think about the term the witch's Sabbath, and also, you know, if you're Jewish, you might call it Sabbath, you might call it Shabbat. You know, it means the same thing. The word, you know, church rhetoric around this time, they would use the word Sabbath or Shabbat to refer to any nighttime gathering of witches. Or, you know, in which sorcery and satanic rituals supposedly took place, right? In those early modern times. Pretty much any non-Christian gathering of any kind. Obviously, if it's not explicitly Christian, then therefore it must be anti-Christian, right?
Yep.
And therefore threatening and satanic and heretical. Is that how you say it? Heretical?
Yeah, heretical.
And they would also really tie that up with these witches' Sabbaths, right? Or the idea of a Sabbath. Really tie that up with sex as well. They would also say that these were meetings for sexual orgies.
Yeah.
And sex, I feel, plays a really interesting role in this movie. Because, you know, we talked about Caleb looking at his sister's boobs because he's pubescent and getting interested in boobs, you know, and the only boobs he has access to. We talked about it.
And of course, how the witch then lures him in by being a
beautiful
very
woman.
sexy woman.
Yeah, and he's super into it.
Heaving bosom.
Very
voluptuous.
Yeah. And the fact that in their tiny little hut, right, like, we have to imagine that mom and dad are having sex.
Yeah.
And, like, when? Probably at night.
Though, I mean, that was pretty common.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, and I also find that, you know, the two, like, the main theme I see here is religion, right? And how, like, religion, especially for Kate, for the mom, and Caleb, is, like, a little bit sexual.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, Caleb, like, again, when Harvey Scrimshaw is acting his fucking ass off at in his death scene, like, I wrote down some of, like, the quotes of what he says, and I was like, wow, this is incredibly sensual, if not outright sexual.
Kiss me with the kiss of thy mouth.
Yes.
He quotes the Song of Solomon, which is
that what that is?
sexiest part of the Bible.
Okay, thank you for telling me, because I was like, what is this from? And I couldn't find it.
Song of Songs. I mean, even when he is dying,
yeah,
he seems to be in ecstasy about it.
Yeah, he's having
kind
a
of
great
writhing
time.
and moaning in a certain way.
Yeah,
that's a little sexy.
The quote that Caleb says at the beginning of his kind of final monologue before he dies is, "Cast the light of countenance upon me, spread her for me the lap of thy love." And he says something about, like, bathe me in the everlasting fountain of thy blood. And so it's, like, obviously about Jesus, right? Where, you know,
just
blood.
Just like the Song of Songs is technically a religious text, but also just very much a sexy text.
Yeah, like
I mean, the lay me in thy lap could be very much a sort of devotional thing.
Absolutely.
But also to die in someone's lap was common slang for having an orgasm.
For having an orgasm, absolutely, yeah. And also, what does he say? Kiss me with the kisses of thy mouth, you know? And
that's straight out of the Bible, dude.
And
the
so
sexy Bible.
So, like, the Bible and God is, like, at least at the end for Caleb, something very, like, sensual or sexual for him. And I think Kate, mom, does the same thing, where
she talks about love.
She talks about love, and she, like, recounts a dream she had once where she was, like, in the presence of Christ.
Yeah.
And she felt so beautiful. Close to him, you know? And I was just like...
And how she was like...
Do you have a crush on Jesus?
Yeah. Oh, she does.
Absolutely, yeah.
And she's like, she just doesn't feel like she'll ever feel that love again. You know? It's like, wow, your husband's right there.
Yeah, he's right there.
He can hear you. But I mean, there's a long history of being super horny for Jesus, especially women and, you know, nuns.
Especially when they're not allowed to be horny for anyone or anything else.
Nuns
absolutely.
Nuns are supposed to be wives too.
That's true. Yeah, they're supposed to be, like, married to Jesus, right? Again, I'm not Catholic.
Yeah, no, me neither.
So
I
also,
just know a little bit about the Middle Ages.
oh, I'm not done with the anti-Semitism stuff.
Yeah, have you gotten to the blood libel yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So also the depiction, again, really common in witch tropes of animalistic and demonic qualities, are also something that would be ascribed to Jewish people as well, right? Again, just anything outside of the
And
Christian societal norm.
Continue to be used, like,
Continue to be, yeah.
during Nazi stuff,
Uh-huh.
right? Rats were associated with Jews?
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
it?
rats, yeah, spiders,
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
all sorts of things.
The classification of a witch and a Jewish person were actually like really closely related in medieval and early modern Europe. And this is something that I found out, that the actual physical anatomy of both Jews and women were classified under the same medical medieval category, which gets us into the humors.
Yeah,
Yes.
we love the humor.
So, Jews and women were both believed to be inherently melancholic, phlegmatic, and made up of putrid black blood, which sounds so fucking metal, you know.
Yeah, you wish you were.
They were thought to both be ruled by Saturn. A little bit of astrology for you. Hence, Jews, like women, were considered passive, inferior, polluted, and untrustworthy.
Yep.
Which I think really hits the nail on the head for like the root of a lot of misogyny, right?
Yeah. And actually, just back to the misogyny, that humor stuff and just the idea of women's bodies being actually like physically different
Yes.
in some like innate way from men's is also part of why they were considered more common prey for devils.
Yep.
And for the devil and witches, because their bodies were considered weaker vessels.
You are taking the words right out of my mouth.
I love that.
Due to these inherent humoristic and temperamental qualities, right? It was widely believed that women, witches, right, and Jews were more likely to be veered towards Satanism, commit demonic acts such as cannibalism, infanticide, right? Because that's an old anti-Semitic trope of Jews killing and possibly also consuming children.
Right.
That's old stuff. Yeah.
And we literally see that witch trope in this movie.
Yes, and holding communion with demons and the devil and taking flight at night. Yeah. And then all of this kind of comes together to still inform our modern imagination of witches, greatly because of the invention of, can you guess?
No? I don't know.
Oh, why our ideas and tropes of witches and the anti-Semitic ideas beneath them are still, they're kind of made concrete by the invention of the printing press.
Oh.
Yeah. You knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. By the invention of the printing press, right? All of a sudden, again, those Puritans are highly literate, right? We can finally start to circulate information in writing, right? And information can go farther and faster.
Yep.
And, you know, we're still dealing with the consequences of that today, right?
Yeah.
So really, everything that these Puritans are made to be afraid of, groovy chicks, right? Jews, sex and pleasure, right? Unless it's directly tied to God and Christ. And of course, you know, also these Puritans are made to fear Satan, right? Anything that's not God or Christ. All rolled up into one, and you get a witch.
Yep.
You get a livestock killing, baby eating, or rubbing, whatever.
Yeah, flying.
Crop killing, flying.
Yeah.
Witch. Yeah.
And I mean, and just thinking about how this still affects us in our modern day.
Right.
I'm thinking about how there was a bit of a controversy when the movie Tangled came out.
Oh, there was?
This is my second Disney reference of this episode.
I don't remember that.
Mother Gothel?
Oh, yeah.
Is that her name?
Mother Gothel. Yeah.
She got a lot of criticism for being quite the Jewish stereotype. And
is it because of the nose?
Well, just her general look, and also her bearing as sort of like, I don't know, I guess kind of a stereotypical Jewish mother sort of idea, but a lot of things. Stealing babies.
Oh, fair enough.
But just like, she has this kind of Jewish look to her.
Okay.
And so part of the defense against that was, well, no, these are witch tropes. We're not being anti-Semitic. This is just what witches are like.
And witch
ignoring
tropes are
the fact
are
that
rooted in anti-Semitism.
That witch tropes are rooted. So like, if we don't examine our tropes, then we're just going to perpetuate, honestly, a lot of anti-Semitism, but also other bad things.
Wow, you know, so I've only seen Tangled once.
Yeah.
And honestly, the only thing I got really from Mother Gothel is that she is dark-haired And I feel like, as a person with naturally dark hair myself, you know,
Mhm.
or a darker
Yeah.
color hair, I feel like I feel like I'm always kind of surrounded by these like subtextual messages that blonde people are good
Yeah.
and pretty,
Yeah.
and dark-haired people are evil,
Yeah.
the bad guy,
Mhm.
right? So, especially when they're female,
Yeah.
right? Because a blonde man can be evil.
Oh, God,
I think we
yes.
learned that from a lot of movies from the 80s.
Yeah.
But as far as women are concerned, right, dark hair is kind of a mark against you.
Yeah.
So that's actually really all I got from Tangled. But you know,
yeah. I mean, she has
yeah.
the way that her hair is like the curl of it.
Yes.
Is like a very traditional. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a side point.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Do we want
What else?
to kind of keep the kind of history rolling by talking about Ergot?
Let's talk about Ergot. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a common theory.
You know where
to
I
this
stand
movie.
on this, but yeah.
I agree with it.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a common theory to this movie, which I think Eggers himself has said, like, wasn't really. He doesn't go for it, but also he can see the evidence for it, sort of.
Yeah.
He was like, yes, the corn does look like it has agate on it.
Ergot.
Ergot.
God, whatever.
I can't do it.
So I've always heard it Ergot or Ergot.
Ergot.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, see, my problem is I keep wanting to pronounce it ergo, like Margot.
Ergo.
And I know it's not ergo.
Like it's French.
Yes. Ergo. Also, yeah. And ergotism, also known as St. Anthony's fire.
Oh.
Another name for that disease.
Okay.
Because of the monks who treated it in the 11th century.
Thank you, monks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the common theory that the corn was infested with ergot, which is a fungus that can infect crops, and that the family of this movie ate it, and that they got driven mad by it.
Right. It's a fungus that can have psychoactive properties.
Yes.
Yes.
And ergotism has a lot of symptoms, actually, and it can have kind of two different common branches to it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so Eggers sort of talked about how, like, yes, the corn does have sort of like ergot on it, but also I think said that that's not really the theory that he is the most fond of in terms of understanding his movie.
Sure.
Though he also purposely left things kind of up in the air, ambiguous, and likes different
Because
theories.
he's an artist.
Yeah, we love that.
Yeah.
So the idea is that, so a common symptoms, part of the reason also why it's called St. Anthony's fire, is that a common one is like burning limbs.
Oh.
To the point that actually it's like a circulation thing where it can have a similar effect like gangrene, where people had to like lose limbs because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one version of it. But the other, which I don't think we see in the film at all.
No.
But another version of ergotism is the one that, like you said, has hallucinations, fever, muscle spasms, being kind of dazed and not speaking, getting manic, maybe getting paralysis or tremors, like things that honestly do kind of sound like Caleb in his last moments, fever, vomiting, you know, all of that stuff.
Hallucination, maybe,
or
or
the stuff he's talking about.
Yeah, or a delusion, rather.
Also, noticeably, it can affect like other mammals, not just humans.
Oh,
this
okay.
fungus. So, like, if the
okay.
goats and the dog were eating it, it could explain some of their weird behavior.
Right.
And also, St. Anthony, just as an aside, himself was known for undergoing a fast in which he saw visions of the devil trying to lure him in with various temptations. So, you know.
Oh, wow.
That's just a fun little aside.
Oh, wow. That's incredibly relevant. Yeah.
And there was even a common theory about the Salem witch trials, which since most scholars are like, nah, we don't think this is really what happened. But for a while there, it was thought that maybe some sort of ergot-infected wheat or whatever caused the hysteria of the Salem witch trial.
Yeah.
We don't buy this as a theory for this movie.
No, I don't.
Any particular reason?
Yeah, well, it kind of goes with the similar way in which the ergot theory got debunked for the Salem witch trials, in that ergot poisoning or ergot whatever, ergotism. Yeah.
St. Anthony's fire.
St. Anthony's fire comes with other it doesn't just like make you trip balls. Like it also comes with incredibly negative side effects.
Yeah.
My understanding was like intestinal distress could be a pretty big one, and that of all of the documentation we have of the Salem witch trials, like primary documents, there's really nothing mentioned about that. And again, like, I stand firm that like the witch is real. And that maybe it is the witch that this is causing all of this to happen. But the witch is not an allegory. The witch is a literal witch. And because of their puritanical beliefs, that would be well within the realm of reality for them, that there would be an actual witch to take their baby, fuck up their livestock, fuck up their crop,
Fuck up their children.
fuck up their kids, and destroy them.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
kill all of their kids except for one who then they turn into
A witch.
a witch. Or, as Kate says, proud slut.
A proud slut.
Proud slut.
Get it,
Yes.
girl.
Yeah.
Get it, Thomason.
I know, it's like, that's not even an insult.
Yeah.
We should get pins.
Yeah, proud slut pins. We'll make merch.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, first merch idea. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the only person who we see having other symptoms really is Caleb.
Yeah.
None of the other people have symptoms. And also, from my understanding, it wasn't super common, like, as a fungus. That's not really on corn. It's on, like, wheats and rye, like
Right.
cereals, those
Right.
sort of things. So, but I do think it was a cool thing to add to the movie as just sort of a nod to that theory.
Mhm.
I think that was a cool idea. So yeah, that's a theory we don't agree with. Do we want to talk about another theory we don't agree with?
Let's. I'm just kind of reviewing my notes to make sure I've mentioned everything that I want to mention.
Yeah.
Can I just have a moment of empathy with Kate, with Mom?
Yeah.
When Caleb has just died, right?
Mhm.
And she's talking with William, you
Yeah.
know, and he asks her, like, what do you want? And I will give it to thee, like.
Yeah.
And she says, I want to be home.
Yeah.
And he's like, we'll be home. We'll be back on the plantation
Yeah.
was his candle time tomorrow or whatever,
Yeah.
And she says, no, I want to be in England. And when he's like, what do you want? Like, I will give you whatever you want. Like, I love you.
Mhm.
How can I make you happy? And she says, I want to be home.
Yeah.
And that feeling of the only thing in the world that you want is something no one can give you. Like, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I wrote, damn girl, been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and her daughter has been there too. She clearly misses England a lot too, Thomason.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, her experiences so far in the new world have been
Yeah.
pretty shitty. Oh, I also did want to also mention that Thomason is overwhelmingly being treated like livestock. Because she kind of is.
Yeah.
We think we were talking about this before, and we think that she's maybe like 15-ish,
Yeah.
give or take
She's supposed
a
to be
year.
pretty young, yeah.
Supposed to be pretty young. Her womanhood is upon her, right?
Mhm.
And Kate mentions that it's time for her maybe to go serve another family, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder, and we could talk about this. Maybe it'll have to do with a fan theory. I don't know, but we could talk about, like, what is Kate's problem with Thomason?
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Okay, love it.
I think we'll get into that. Or at least we can.
Because she really seems to, like, we got to get rid of her.
Yeah.
But, like, is it, as one Puritan woman to another, like, you need to, I know what is going to help you survive in this world, and that is to go serve another family, right? And you're old enough,
And it's just the time.
you're fertile, it's time, but also just really seems to, like, want her gone. Even before the witchcraft accusations really come into full swing, So what is Kate's issue with Thomason? I can't wait to talk about it, but you have another fan theory, or?
Yeah, another one that we don't really agree with.
Yeah.
But it really dives into the characters and their relationships with each other, which I think is it's still useful to talk about. But my main problem with this theory is that it's very Catholic.
Oh, the 7 deadly sins. Yeah.
The 7 deadly sins theory.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, which we touched on briefly because William, it works with William. He's pride.
He's very
he thinks
prideful.
he knows best. He's,
Yeah.
Sent away from the plantation because of his, like, religious pride.
Yes.
He thinks he knows better than everybody.
And he takes his family of his wife and 5 children, one of which is an infant.
Yeah.
Yeah, out into the wilderness to homestead. Yep.
And the theory on Reddit, where I think this was maybe originated, because Reddit's good for that.
Yeah.
Also talks about how their sin is also related to how they die. And a part of William's death, I mean, he spends that whole time whenever he's, like, stressed out, whenever he needs to, like, kind of prove that he still is manly and can take care of his family, he goes to chop
He
that
chops
wood.
some wood.
He's chopping
Yeah.
that wood. He's chopped so much wood. More wood than they probably need for the time
I don't know,
being.
man. The winter's going to be long.
Quick. Wood goes quick.
Wood goes quick, and, like, that winter's going to be harsh.
But-
Like, they don't have any insulation
Yeah.
in their
Anyway,
but
probably he could be doing other work. He could be hunting better. Thomason even gives him crap about, like, you can't grow crops. You can't hunt. All you can do is chop that damn wood.
Yeah.
Like, she gives her
But
total
also,
crap.
like, yes, this is what he can offer his family,
Yeah.
is chopped
So
wood.
it's kind of like this weird sense
Yeah,
of pride for him. And
absolutely.
he dies
That is how
with
he
it
dies.
all burying him.
Right, yeah. And he also, the very last thing he says is, corruption that art my father, which is from the book of Job. And, you know, are you familiar with the book of Job?
Nah.
So really all you need to know is it's about a man, Job, as well as his family, but they don't matter.
Right, yeah. No.
And I think depending on the version of the story, God and Satan are basically placing bets.
Yeah.
As to like, we'll make Job's life as
So
hard as
horrible.
possible. We'll take everything from him, and he will still be faithful to me, is what God believes. And Satan's like, not even close. No, he's totally going to turn on you. And like, okay, well, let's see. And so it's a story of perseverance and, you know, trusting in God's great plan, you know. But also, I take issue with that because God and Satan are not equals. I never thought that. You know,
I have no particular opinion on it, but yes.
So Satan is not supposed to be an equal. Satan is an angel, a fallen angel.
But he's also the great adversary.
Sure, yeah. And he can be an antagonist. You know, he can be an adversary. But he is not on the same playing field as God, in my personal opinion. Like, especially in this version of God.
Yeah.
Right. And Satan. Although the Puritans do really put them on a really similar, you know, a similar platform. But just for me and my own personal beliefs, like, these two entities are nowhere near each other. You know, like, I think they both, like, hold power, but they're, you know, it's not even comparable.
Oh, okay.
That's me. So there's a lot of parallels to the book of Job, right? They mention it outright several times.
That's true, they do, actually.
Yeah, and also, you know, they're living it. Everything is being taken from them, and they're like desperately trying to hold on to their faith, right?
And many of them talk about how they're kind of losing it, but I don't know that William, our papa, ever actually loses faith. He even licks the dirt of the earth.
He just loves his family so much, and he's just like, I don't even care, like, damn me to hell. Just please save my kids. Please save my kids. Right.
Yeah. And a lot of dies with a Bible verse on his lip.
Yeah, the last thing he says is from the book of Job. Yeah. I actually also noticed that. So if, let me guess where you're going with this. So if William's ultimate sin is pride, which we know is the deadliest sin of all, right?
It's the sexiest one, in my opinion.
It's sexier than lust?
Yeah.
Which, by the way...
You know me, I'm not big on lust.
I know, yes.
I love a prideful person,
person. Well, in that vein, I think that would probably be Caleb's sin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
According to the theory.
According to the theory, yeah.
It's really obvious then, like, how that relates to his death, too, because he's lured in by this beautiful woman.
Right.
And as we've already talked about with his death scene, it's all of that. It's the bite of the forbidden fruit. Yeah. He dies quoting the Song of Songs. He has this, like, moment of ecstasy. Like, those two are the most straightforward, I think. Those are the ones that really fit with the theory.
Right.
Everything else after that falls apart a little.
Fair. I totally agree. I think the pride and lust are, like, really obvious. But I think we could make a really good argument that mom's sin is wrath. She's pretty wrathful.
Yes.
Or envious, maybe, also.
So the theory I saw supposed that Catherine was envy.
Yeah.
Because, like, her main deal is that she really wishes that, like, maybe she was young and beautiful like Thomasin. That story she has is about how when she was Thomasin's age, that's when she felt the love of God. When she attacks Thomasin, it's by accusing her of seducing her brother and saying that her father. Her father, William, is going to be next.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then Thomasin strikes her mom's face, which is sort of like the seed of her feminine beauty, like marring it.
When they get in a fight and she kills Kate. You missed a huge aspect of that scene.
Okay.
I don't know if you caught it. I only caught it because I was watching with subtitles. Although you watch with subtitles too. They get in a fight, right? Kate is furious. She's accusing Thomasin of being a witch. She's calling her a proud slut. All the great stuff. And they tussle, and they're both on the ground. And Thomasin is pinned underneath Kate, and she says repeatedly, "I love you. I love you. I love you."
Yeah, she does.
And then she hits her in the head and kills her.
Yeah, it's not really related to the theory, but it is a...
Well, that just goes back with my theory of the combination of
love and abuse.
Abuse and love. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But also, what do you do when you're a daughter in that situation?
And that people in abusive situations also are capable of feeling love within that abusive relationship.
Yeah.
You know? So if that relationship is between, man and God, or
Mhm.
if it's between, mother and daughter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though
So
also so that could be her having envy for Thomason, but like you said, it's also easy to read Catherine as a symbol of wrath. Because
absolutely.
she's always yelling at
She's always yelling at Thomason.
mostly Thomason, also at her husband. I think she slaps her husband at one point too.
She does, yeah. Yeah.
She's pretty angry. The other though option for wrath.
Also, her infant just died.
Yeah, I know.
You
Give
know?
a girl a break.
I know.
That's actually why I thought Catherine maybe could be sloth, because there's the idea of sloth maybe actually being depression.
Oh, see, I thought yes,
And how in like a relationship with suicide and stuff, where she like lies down in Caleb's grave for a moment,
and just kind of.
So I was like, that's also a thing.
and that she spends. Actually, she does come out when like there's some a kerfuffle outside, but like when she's in bed, just like praying after she knows that Sam is gone and is not coming back. And it's like, oh, she's probably been in bed for a couple of days.
So I mean, already we kind of have a problem with the theory, because Catherine could be a lot of these different things.
I thought, because I was thinking about the 7 deadly sins, when again it's obvious that Dad is pride and that Caleb is sin, or is lust. That's his sin. I almost wondered if the twins were sloth.
Yes, so
they really have a hard time picking up their slack.
Jonas as sloth, because I mean they talk all the time about how he won't do his work. We even see him in the cornfield with his father. Like, maybe he's supposed to be learning how to do the work, but he's just standing there with some corn in his hand, not doing anything.
Fucking Jonas.
And, like, things start to get really bad when he can't remember his prayers. And is he doing that, like, purposely? Is he doing that because he's scared? Is he doing it because he's sloth and, like, literally did not do the work of memorizing his prayers?
I can't imagine, because, like, again, as a Puritan boy, like, it's the only thing he needs to know.
I know.
At a certain age, like, I think, no.
But he much prefers his songs about Black Phillip.
Yes, he does. I choose to believe, because Mercy and Jonas are such assholes throughout the entire film, accusing Thomason of witchcraft. I think that they were playing a game. I think that they thought that it was funny. To pretend like, oh, we've been witched by our older sister. We can't remember our prayers. Isn't that a sign of bewitchment and the work of the devil, you know?
I mean, I think I see Jonas more as a follower. So
Yes.
him being the one to initially say he can't remember his prayers, I'm like, I kind of believe that he really just in that moment stressed out, freaked out, being a kid.
Yeah.
Just doesn't know what to say or do while his brother is
dying.
like it's a freaked out moment.
Yeah.
So the theory then also has Mercy as wrath.
Mm.
Because she does really lash out against Thomason a lot. She's the one who accuses her of witchcraft as sort of like payback for scaring her.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then she ends up getting locked in that shed and dying there, or whatever.
Whatever happens to them,
because of that, anger she has against her sister for scaring her. That's the idea. With the twins. I know I'm not like super on board, but I don't hate it.
I mean, this is fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I think I also saw some people say maybe Mercy was like gluttony, but I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing with gluttony, if we're like talking about it as in relationship to food.
Yeah.
There's no food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this theory actually had Samuel as original sin rather than one of the 7 deadly sins because he wasn't baptized.
He wasn't baptized.
But then there were also thoughts of him being gluttony because literally he's a baby. What do babies do? They just eat and nothing else.
And sleep and poop. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he dies either getting eaten by a wolf or starving, so they say, But then also the idea that perhaps he actually represents greed on the part of the parents because they've already had so many children and they've never lost any.
They have so many fucking kids, yeah.
And that it was almost kind of greedy of them to then try to have another kid, especially at this moment when they're going out into the wilderness.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know.
However, I mean, 1630s family planning. I think they're probably just, having sex and they're getting pregnant when they get pregnant.
But,
and either having babies or not, right?
Yeah. Though also in that time period, maybe the idea that you would never have any of those kids die would be kind of like greedy and prideful.
Right. Well, they mentioned that, they say that Christ has never taken a child from them before, Yeah.
So then that leaves us with Thomason, who...
Yeah. What sins are left?
Well, greed.
Yeah.
If Samuel is gluttony or original sin.
Sure.
Or she could be gluttony, maybe. Or she could be envy. Kind of all for the same reasons.
Sure.
She misses that glass window in England. She used to spend a lot of time staring at her mother's silver cup. Yeah. Even though she didn't steal it.
She didn't.
She's tempted by the butter and the pretty dresses.
She
wants comfort. She wants wealth.
Yeah. But again, can you blame her?
I know.
It's like, she's had overwhelmingly a shitty life. She's escaped religious persecution.
Like, excuse her for wanting some fucking butter.
And a pretty dress.
Like, let the girl live.
Yes.
Yeah, no. So I'm not super bought on it. I think a more interesting comparison, if we're going to get kind of Christian sin imagery with it,
sure, yeah,
is to go back to the line that Catherine has. Was not Christ led into the wilderness to be ill met by the devil? Because then I started looking into Jesus's temptations.
Yes.
Which I think are a few different versions in the different New Testament.
And something I'm actually really unfamiliar with. I think I'm more of an Old Testament kind of gal.
Yeah, I do know.
Yeah.
I technically studied it in college, but that was a while ago.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. So he gets tempted. He's in the wilderness. The devil. He's been fasting for 40 days or whatever.
Yeah.
The devil comes and says, "Hey, if you're the Son of God and you're super hungry and stuff, why don't you just turn these rocks into bread?" And Jesus quotes the Bible by saying, "Man cannot live on bread alone."
Okay.
And then the devil takes him up to a high point where he can see like cities out before him and says like, "Hey, you're supposed to be like the king of everything. I'll give you rulership over the whole world right now. You don't have to go through all of that, dying and shit and stuff. All you have to do is serve me and worship me." And Jesus quotes the Bible again and is like, you should only serve and worship God. And then the devil gets kind of silly with this one. Takes him to the top of a really high temple.
The devil is so silly.
He's so silly. He gets so silly. He's like, huh? You think that God's angels are like there for you and will take care of you? Then jump off this really tall building and see if the angels catch you, huh? What about that, Jesus?
All right.
And Jesus is like, don't test God, maybe?
Yeah.
How about I just don't test God?
Yeah.
So like, it's sort of interpreted as him being tempted by materialism,
right,
hedonism,
power,
and pride of ego.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like those, more than the 7 deadly sins, kind of have more to say about this family, because I do think what they all sort of suffer kind of from is, their father's pride.
Yes.
Is sort of what gets them into this situation.
In the first place.
And then just how much they want those sort of material things and those hedonistic pleasures. Like, various characters long for these things at different points. And in the end, when she does make that deal with the devil, Thomasin is promised butter, which is a lust of the flesh.
And a pretty dress.
A pretty dress, which is a reason to feel prideful.
Yeah.
And to see the world, which is the lust of the eyes.
Yeah.
So that materialism, ego, and hedonism again. Yeah. And so there's this idea that Jesus was able to resist because he saw the devil for what he was, which is a deceiver.
Right.
Meanwhile, this family is like constantly lying to each other and not knowing who to believe, and they don't see the goat as like the devil. Really, they
until it's way
but
too late.
Sure,
yeah,
like they don't really see what the real threat is, and they turn on each other instead. And they also Jesus also resists because he keeps his faith, whereas this family, as we just talked about, start to really question God and like don't feel as close to him as they did before.
Right. I almost wondered, there was a point pretty early in the film that I was wondering if the witch was a symbol for their like wavering faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's true. And I think there's also an extent to which like the devil uses the word of God to sort of try to trick Jesus.
Right.
And Jesus then responds with the actual word of God.
Kate,
that like
Kate says something like that the devil can quote scripture to serve himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And how there's also other moments of sort of like hypocrisy and sort of saying words but really doing something else, specifically with William, and how we were talking about Thomas and calling him out.
Right. With the silver cup.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is really kind of what sets the bloody climax of the film in motion, is that moment.
It's so good.
So I don't know. I feel like if we're gonna go with some sort of theory about that, I think that's a better place to look than like the very kind of like Catholic idea of 7 deadly sins.
Exactly, because the point is that they are very not Catholic because they're Puritans.
That's they
literally
hate
the
Catholicism.
point. Yeah,
that's why they left England.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that ending. I think that it's, again, one of my favorite things about Cabin in the Woods is the ending. And you do really get this sense of like the, big quotes, the quote unquote bad guy wins, right? Thomasin becomes a witch, right? She gets naked.
Yeah.
Finds a witch's Sabbath happening nearby, like floats up to the sky. She looks elated, right? Yeah. She's super happy. And like that's where the movie ends for us. And I was like, I love this.
I know. Yeah, she seems happy about it.
She seems happy. And again, we,
that is the other theory we didn't talk about.
Oh, yeah?
The relationship between... We already kind of said that we don't think that
No,
dad was molesting any of his children.
No.
But I have seen a few fan theories about that. Either Caleb or Thomason.
And what evidence is it being backed up with?
Honestly, not much.
Not enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the theories even went so far to say that, well, there is this theory about how we often see Thomason, whenever we have scenes with the witch, it's either like before or after Thomason seems to be like falling asleep or waking up.
Right, yeah.
So it's the idea that these are sort of like fugue state dreams she has, and she's actually doing the things that the witch does.
Yeah, I saw theories like that.
Right?
Yeah.
That the idea is that part of the reason she's doing that is that that's a trauma response to either being molested or knowing that Caleb is being molested or something like that. That may be part of why she would kill specifically Samuel and Caleb, is because the dad is molesting specifically the boys. Okay. I don't know, but then what about Jonas?
No, I'm not buying it.
Yeah,
no,
I'm not buying any of it.
Yeah, that's not enough evidence for me.
And plus, I don't know. It kind of also doesn't make the ending it doesn't make any of it as fun, honestly.
Yeah, and also I wonder, again, in 1630s, like, Puritan New England, farmstead.
Yeah.
Like, would they understand molestation the way we would today?
Yes and no.
Right, like...
I mean, they would understand incest.
Yeah.
For sure. Incest was highly regulated in various different ways, especially when it came to, like, early settlements.
Yeah.
Like, I know there are a bunch of medieval laws, which are always kind of my favorite because they're so batshit, that are meant to stop incest, but it's, like, within 12 degrees of relationship, including through marriage.
12 degrees?
Yeah. So, like, your cousin's cousins who married this guy who has this brother who has a cousin who's like that, specifically because when you're in a village, you tend to
There's not that many people.
You tend to kind of be related through these,
There's only so many different families.
So it encouraged you to go to the nearby village, which then created ties between those villages, which then allowed it to start growing into a city. So incest was definitely something that they would have been aware of and would not have liked.
And would also understand that, like, sex would be something sinful, right? But, like, again, maybe something more, like, less close to sex and more close to physical abuse.
Yeah.
Right. Might just kind of be part of life. Might be something more normalized.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, and also, like, I see how much William loves his kids.
Yeah. I mean, I think the theory partially comes from Catherine's disdain towards Thomason.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Kate's got problems for sure.
Yeah, and how she specifically accuses her of, like, going to soon, like, seduce her husband away from her.
Yeah.
But, like, she's kind of mad and crazy at that point. I don't know.
Yeah, I
don't think any of that is something we need.
She's been pecked in the boob by a raven.
Like, she's been through a lot. She's lost enough children that, like,
she's over it. Do you think she signs her name in the book?
Thomason?
Kate.
Oh, Kate.
Do you think she signs her name? Because Caleb, the vision of
to.
Caleb says that he has a book that he wants her to look at.
But then she says, I first want to feed Samuel.
Yeah.
And that's all we see her do.
That's really all we get, yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think so.
Huh. And also, would it count in a dream? Is it a dream? Is it like a vision?
Well, that was common, I mean, in the Salem witch trials.
Sure.
Often they would accuse each other by saying
something that happened in a dream.
Somebody came to them in a dream trying to bewitch them into signing the book, things like that. So, I think it would count.
Well, that's actually something that I saw. This isn't nearly as well of a fleshed out theory, but that what I noticed is the devil or a witch or whoever, is trying to get people with, like, get them to sign his book or whatever with what they most want. So, like, what does Kate want? She wants her kids back.
Yeah.
Right? She wants to be able to see her kids again.
Mm-hmm.
Thomason wants a less shitty life.
Yeah.
Caleb is, again, like, lured in with his, like, lustful ideas, right?
Because he's a fucking teenage boy.
He's a teenage boy. And that, dad is just murdered, but again, he's kind of surrounded by, he gets gored by Black Phillip and then, like, falls into this big pile of wood and, that kind of being, like, the only thing he feels he can contribute,
Yeah.
Or I mean, I think that that's how William feels. That's just my own read of it,
Yeah.
That in some ways it does feel like all of these people are being lured or tempted or tricked with what they most want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another theory also that it was all, in a way, actually Thomason's fault for at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
saying how she's a sinner but she wants God's mercy. That she's like actually the most devout, more devout than, like, we never actually see her commit any sins until the end when she agrees to go with the devil, and that she is therefore just like a prime target for the devil, and that everything that happens is just to get her basically in the right condition to want to agree to the deal.
Right. Yeah, we do really see again, the first time we see her, she is literally on her knees praying.
Yeah.
Right. Confessing her sins.
Yeah.
Right. Begging for salvation, for mercy, you know, professing her love for Christ. And then, in the end, she signs her name in the devil's book and she gets to become a witch.
Yeah.
Like, what a wild ride.
What a glow up.
In 90 minutes. And people on the internet said it was too slow. Yeah, and we, already talked about how, Thomason is kind of given no other option, no
really
other
isn't.
viable option but to
Right.
sell her soul to, sign her name in the devil's book and become a witch.
Honestly makes it kind of a good allegory for the plight of women in these sort of like patriarchal societies.
And she, think about the entire movie, her siblings, her mom are saying she's a witch, accusing her of being a witch, and she's like, actually, I'm the most devout of all of you.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you're just gonna keep saying I'm a witch, well then fuck you, I'll be a witch then.
Yeah.
Which I get.
Yeah.
No. And so it's kind of funny. I know that I don't know about you, we saw this movie together in theaters again, but that was in 2015. It was, a while ago. I remember when Black Phillip finally, she commands Black Phillip to speak, and she almost gives up on him, and then he speaks, right? In a whisper, right?
Sexy whisper.
That weird whisper, yeah. Matt was mentioning, our producer, Matt, was mentioning something about like the sound design
for it and how it's really
Black
cool.
Phillip,
and we're like, yeah, we understand what you're talking about.
I totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah, super cool. But it's real sexy.
When he says, would you like to live?
Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
And it's like, it's almost funny. It's almost like played for laughs. And it's just like, is this the devil I've been scared of this whole movie? Okay.
Yeah.
And he says, wouldst thou like the taste of, or
butter. Yeah.
He asks Thomason, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want? I can get you pretty much anything. Wouldst thou like the taste of butter, a pretty dress? And she's already like, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, I want those things.
And then Black Phillip continues to say, to see the world, and she's like, yeah, like Thomason's already, like, you've already got her on the hook.
I mean, the moment her parents died, like her family died, like,
also
she was on board.
One other thing, so she does kill her mom.
That's true, she does.
She does kill her mom.
In self-defense.
It very much so. Yeah, it was probably going to be one or the other of them. Yeah. And then she kills her mom. Her mom dies on top of her. She kind of pushes her mom off. God. She goes, do you remember what she does? She goes back into the house. She takes off her dress.
Yes.
She gets a blanket, wraps herself up, and sits at the table and takes a nap.
Yeah, got to take that depression nap.
And I was just like, yeah, that was a lot. She needs a break.
Yeah. I feel that. I feel that a lot. But yeah, it goes into the theory about it all being a dream, because then she wakes up and
no, I'm sorry.
I'm not in it. I'm not into it.
No. But
I am into the idea that Mercy and Jonas weren't in league with the devil. Maybe Black Phillip was actually talking to them. Maybe the devil just took advantage of that. Right. But I think that they were more pawns than actually in on it.
Probably. Yeah, they're children.
And that they were just being children and being dumb and jerks to their older sister, because that's what kids do.
That's what kids do.
I'm sure when those kids grew up, they were going to be less jerks, but also maybe not, because they had such traumatic childhoods.
But also, like, the fact that they're twins is interesting. Oh, also, one other thing. The name Thomas is derived from the word twin.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't know what that means.
I thought maybe it had something to do with doubting Thomas.
Oh.
From the Bible.
Maybe.
I don't know. I didn't get into it.
Yeah, so, because we've got the twins, and obviously, like, I think there's a lot of symbolism around, like, evilness in twins, right? Like, the good twin, the evil twin, right?
Yeah. Creepy twins have been used in horror movies.
Creepy twins, yeah.
Not any that I've seen, but I know it's true.
That those are the twins. But then also it could be like a symbol of abundance for the family. It's like, look how many fucking kids we got past the age of 5. You know, look at us. 2 at the same time. Like, beat that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Catherine should be very proud.
Yes. And then Thomas scene, and I was like, what is the origin of the name Thomas, right? And I looked it up, and it means twin.
That's interesting.
So I don't know what that means. That, you know, I don't know. We can maybe revisit it later if something really interesting comes to light. But just a fun fact.
Yeah.
And then so she signs away her soul for some butter and a pretty dress. Yeah. And I don't blame her.
I don't blame her.
No. So is that going to lead us into the game you invented?
Yeah.
I'm so ready. Let's play it. Let's do it.
So we're going to play a game called What's That Like to Live Deliciously?
The answer is always yes.
Yeah. Where we're going to try to get the other person to sell their soul to the devil.
Write our name in the devil's book. Yeah.
By tempting them with 3 relatively mundane things. I think you have to try to get it as small and mundane as possible.
Right.
Because, like, the more mundane you can get the other person with, the better it is.
For a whole soul. Yeah.
I mean, he goes as far as seeing the world.
Right.
Which is pretty big, but he starts with butter.
I wonder what the world is for Thomason.
I know.
It's probably a lot smaller than the actual world.
Okay. I'm going to try to tempt you first.
All right, you first.
Okay. I think also the game only works if you say, what's thou like, before each one.
What's thou like, yes. So, what dost thou want?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what's thou like? A tilt record. I know you've been looking everywhere for tilt.
They're so hard to find. Yeah. Okay.
I
would. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to sell my soul.
Okay. Here's my next one.
Okay.
What's thou like? Free and easy access to getting your hair dyed whenever you want, any color, always.
Ooh, that is helpful because it is spendy.
It is spendy.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy.
It's not easy and time consuming.
Yeah.
Okay. What else you got?
Okay, my last one. This is gonna do it. We'll see. We'll see if this does
right.
it. Okay. What's thou like? Your beloved cat Lila to have a long, healthy life and be like your witch's familiar.
Can we make Lila's life as long as mine?
Well, see, I'm not sure. Does that get out of the realm of the like mundane? But if she's like your witch's familiar, then I feel like I think so.
Yeah, I would do a lot of shit for Lila.
I know, right? I thought that's why I saved it for last.
That's my cat Lila.
She's here recording with us right now.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Huge Lila fan. I actually have had several, more than one, dreams about someone or something. Sometimes it's like an alien or some unknowable evil. Coming for my cat.
So I'm hitting you right in your anxieties.
Yeah, and I in my dreams have been just like, absolutely not. Just like, I have
but enough to sell your soul to the devil.
I produce weapons that I like don't have access to in the real world. It's like, nope, absolutely not. I'm taking you down with me. You're not taking my cat.
Oh wow.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah,
so what do I get? Oh, I can finally build
your tilt record.
Tilt vinyl collection.
Yeah.
Because I've got nothing so far.
Hair dye.
Oh,
just
my
all
hair
the
dye, yeah,
and
but really the nail in the coffin is the cat, yeah. Okay, so we were on the same track.
Yeah. I was gonna say we're pretty similar.
Pretty similar, yeah. I was gonna say so, and again, right? It needs to be. Is it something that like the average person would find mundane?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So for instance, like, wouldst thou like the ability to consume dairy?
I was thinking, actually, I was like, I wrote in my notes, how would the devil get me?
Yeah.
Wouldst thou like a tummy that wasn't hurty all the time?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
a head that wasn't achy all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would need to be more than just the dairy. Okay. But I'm definitely, we're on a track. We're on a track.
You could go back to your yogurt and potatoes.
I do miss yogurt and potatoes.
Yeah. Wouldst thou like the ability to consume garlic again?
God, yeah. See, no, honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just actually, well, see, no, again, it's just not enough. There's too many other foods that I still would not be able to eat. That is just not enough. I need a package deal, devil.
Right. And so that would be, I feel like, too much if I said, wouldst thou like be able to consume dairy, tomatoes, garlic, onion.
Basically, to just not have a fucked up stomach, headache.
To not have the
migraine trigger,
the food
everything.
sensitivities that you deal with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the two I'm offering you. Dairy and garlic. Those are the two I'm offering you.
Okay. Those are good
However,
ones.
wouldst thou like? We totally are almost the same person. A dog companion. Could be a little bit, doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Who was guaranteed to live a long and healthy life.
No, that really is it. That's what we would sell our souls to the devil for.
Yeah.
We just want our animals to be with us always.
Yeah.
Like, they really just had to say which is familiar, and we were like, yep, sign him a name.
Sign him a name, yep. And again, like I said, like, it wouldn't need to be a little bit. However, I'm sure that would be one to really get you. Yeah.
Yes.
But, like, you know, I'd let you, like, you know, build a dog.
Build a dog.
Like, build a bear for a dog. With a guaranteed long and healthy life.
Yeah, and I assume also a part of having, like, a witch's familiar is a certain degree of, like, psychic communication. I just feel like that should be there.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that's all. Like, though honestly, really, a pretty dress that's actually, like, comfortable and with, like, pockets and stuff.
Right.
That I could, like, wear to work but also still be, like, cute. You know?
Like, kind of go out on the town, you know?
Yeah. Like, I get it, Thomas, then.
Oh, I totally get it. Yeah, think about, like, butter it sounds mundane to us, but to Thomason and probably a lot of other people, it would be quite the luxury. Yeah.
But still is something that's, like, I just meant that, like, it couldn't be something like superpowers, you know?
Right, like the ability to fly,
you know,
or become invisible or anything like that. Yeah, definitely. Just, you know, wouldst thou like to have less food sensitivities?
Yeah, and I really would.
Yeah, in general, being able to find albums on vinyl that I can only really find on CD or in a digital format, being able to find especially older stuff,
and the hair dye one was because I would want that too.
I would, definitely.
That's real tempting.
I've been thinking about, like, how much money I spend on my hair.
I know, it's bad. I need to go in, actually. My little shave is getting a little too long. It's getting on my ears.
My purple is starting to fade. And that's fine. Like, I know that's going to happen, but I really like to go with, like, a really dark shade of the color I go with so that I can spend more time growing it out and letting it fade. Yeah.
And, you know, this is relevant to The Witch because next time you watch, look for the symbolism of when the women start to show their hair without their hats on, and when it goes from being braided to being down. Just, you know, a little parting thought.
I did notice that about Kate. I always thought,
and Thomason,
and I noticed with Thomason, or like I remembered that, but like with Kate, I was just like, dang, your hair's long.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, yeah.
What else are you gonna do?
What else are you gonna do? You're gonna put it up. You're gonna, like, braid it or just put it up, and it's yeah.
So anyway, this has been Deep Thoughts, Shallow Plots.
Absolutely. Join us next time. I think we decided we're gonna do Scream.
Yes.
Great, absolute classic.
We love it. Yeah. A classic. Yeah, we want to do a classic. Thanks, as always, to our sound guy, Matt. Couldn't do it without him.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the theme song.
Yeah, and he also wrote the theme song. He's just a generally really cool guy, and a really talented musician.
You can check out his podcast, Music Sucks and I Want to Die.
Until next time, don't forget to live
deliciously.
I don't know.